well, you're gonna get to, but it's not for good reasons. This morning I've been to the homestead and back, check on the animals, kind of got some stuff, fed the chickens a bunch of extra so they don't need anything for a day or two. And then I'm back and we're just in a waiting game. Okay, Brianna, what's going on?
Well, I started bleeding a lot very suddenly, and in any situation, in any birth, pregnancy situation, that's, you know immediately that that's not a good thing. But I had a feeling it probably meant that I was having a placental abruption, which is super serious, super dangerous, true emergency for yourself and for your baby or babies in our case. So we were very quickly able to get the kids settled and come to the hospital in Asheville.
This all happened at 8:30 about last night, and we like immediately left.
Yeah, it was 8:30 last night, and it's 9:30 the next day in the morning. We chose this hospital because they have a really good NICU, because we may have to have the babies anytime. So I'm 27 weeks and 2 days today.
Which is really, really, really early for having babies.
Very, very, very early. Thankfully, this hospital does have a very, very good NICU. And of course, my preference would be
no NICU.
Never to grace the doors of the glorious nurses of the NICU, but we shall see. So we actually, there's a huge range of scenarios. One being that I'll be sent home after some shots they'll give me to help the babies develop their lungs quicker. And doing a lot of testing and stuff for me. I'll be sent home probably tomorrow on bed rest. So that's like best case scenario. So that's what we're praying for.
That is, if the bleeding stops and the babies look good and you're not having any contraction, we'll be out of here.
Yeah,
we'll be on bed rest.
And the placenta has to look good.
Yeah.
On the ultrasound. Yeah, probably with coming in often for checks.
Worst case scenario that's not horribly tragic is...
It feels horribly tragic to me.
I know,
it
what
could
I'm
be
saying
worse.
is like there are worse cases,
yeah.
But like the worst case that would be kind of wouldn't be a shock to anyone in the hospital, is that if bleeding were to progress,
or babies started to,
or the baby's heart rate showing any signs of stress, i.e. slowing down,
I mean they're not getting enough oxygen,
then it would be a speedy delivery, likely a C-section.
Likely an emergency C-section, which means you get put to sleep.
So we're just basically waiting. It's a waiting game now. But
Yes.
A lot of things are looking good.
Right now, we're in the best case scenario. But what we've been told is that with placental abruption, that can literally change in a second. So.
And placental abruption, for everyone who doesn't know what it is, if you don't remember your anatomy, basically your uterus is like the room, it's always there. It's part of the female anatomy, and the placenta come with the babies. They're not really part of the babies, but they form from the babies.
They're an organ that you grow.
DNA.
Every time you have a baby.
And they're tightly fused to the placenta, or tightly fused to the uterus. And that's where the transfer of oxygen and nutrients from the mother's blood to the baby's blood happens. So anytime supravascular, there's a lot of blood flow there. Anytime there's any separation, you're going to have blood loss. So that's most likely what we're dealing with.
And it's just super dangerous for me because I could hemorrhage which means just bleeding a lot, which could require, I mean, there's so many scenarios there. And for the babies, it can mean, and it's our little girl whose placenta is possibly abrupted. And so, basically, it could mean that she has reduced oxygen, reduced blood flow of nutrients. But so far, they are so active and so healthy and so wiggly that the nurses literally had to sit here all night holding monitors on my belly because the alarms went off every 5 minutes. Because the baby, they'd get the things on, strap them on, and then the babies would move. The nurses would leave. I'd lay down and go to sleep, and then the alarms would go off.
How long did you sleep?
I didn't really. There was a time, they took the alarms off for a little bit this morning so I could rest. So from like 6, what time did you leave? So from like 6:30 to like 7:30 or 8:30, I had them off, but then this alarm kept going off. So now I've just given up and I'm just waiting for them to come put the things back on.
Our kids are pretty stressed about it. We talked to them a couple times, but they're in like the best place they could be right now.
Yeah, they are.
And they'll be with family.
They're good friends playing with their closest friends.
But they're in love with these babies already.
Yeah, and we didn't even tell them really anything was wrong. But when they hear like mom's going to the hospital, they were really upset. And of course I just stayed totally calm, didn't cry, and I was like, it's all gonna be okay. And then I finally cried when I got to the hospital, when she started talking about all the things. I finally was able to cry away from the kids because I didn't want to scare them because they were already scared. But they love their brother and their sister so much, and their mama. But they sounded really good this morning.
Yeah, they did.
They said that the whole family prayed. They got together and prayed last night. So Joy really wanted to do that.
So guys, we would appreciate your prayers, and we do appreciate your concern in this situation. We don't want to be in the hospital, but we do feel like we're in the hands of very skilled doctors.
Yeah, this is what.
It's a great hospital. It's honestly a great OB team.
Yeah.
None is perfect, and it's an awesome NICU team if it comes to that.
Yeah. This is what hospitals are for, and I appreciate that and respect it. Though I do prefer just totally uneventful home births. But when things happen, I am thankful for this option, for sure.
Basically right now we're dealing with, you still could have your dream birth. It could happen.
It's still a possibility.
If everything goes really well. And I mean, on one hand it doesn't matter, but it does matter. But on the other hand,
yeah.
On the other side, like we could be hovering over NICU incubators like tonight for the next 3 weeks.
3 months. Maybe more than 3 weeks. I think it'd be 8 weeks. It just depends on how they do.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, you go, these are all the scenarios. You don't know which one's going to happen.
That's right.
Interestingly, in some ways, I feel prepared for this in my mind and in my heart.
Yeah.
Because I've been following a couple of moms on Instagram I've followed a lot of moms on Instagram that have just recently had twins, but I follow a couple, and one in particular that have had similar scenarios. The cause of the hospitalization might be different, or the cause of the babies being born early might be different. But because of that, I feel somewhat educated, meaning I don't feel totally blind and in the dark right now, which for me makes me feel a lot better. Having information, I'm like a major researcher. So,
Go ahead.
I'm not saying that's where my peace comes from, but going into a situation like this and having no clue the words that they're talking about and their definitions and what they mean would be very stressful to me.
It's also not your first rodeo. You're pretty familiar with birth.
Yeah, not this though, but knowing what the terms mean, knowing what the drugs they're talking about, like they want to give me these steroid shots for the babies, and I already knew what those were, and I already knew what they were for, and I already knew that I was fine with getting them. You know, like I didn't have to research it and think about it or take a leap or get it and be scared.
But if it was your first time, you might not know what placenta abruption was.
That's true. I already know what that is. I knew what the blood probably was coming from.
Yeah.
I was scared.
We're going to the ultrasound.
It's a 3D ultrasound.
Which I didn't even know they use those for medical purposes. I thought they were just for entertainment.
I did too.
But apparently it's the best way to visualize
The
potential
placenta.
bleeding and separation between the placenta and the uterus.
Yeah.
So we'll update you tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
We'll update our viewers tomorrow
Oh yeah.
as to what's going on.
Okay.